Doug Stanley loves the smell of freshly turned earth. The sight of his harvest makes it all worth the hard work. Farming is in his blood. Now he's working in Zambia, having been driven off his farm in Zimbabwe by supporters of President Robert Mugabe 14 years ago.
I bought my farm after independence, and I got clearance from the government to say that they weren't interested in that land. And then, to be told to move along, it's quite a thing. You do all that development, and it was my home.
4,000 white farmers were forced off the land, damaging Zimbabwe's agriculture industry. Its main export crop, tobacco, has almost recovered, but the maize harvest, which has also been hit by years of drought, remains too low to feed the nation.
People are dying of starvation. There's no food. We now living in Zambia, and there's quite a few Zimbabwe farmers here in Zambia, and we're actually exporting food to Zimbabwe.
Zambia isn't the only country benefiting from the Zimbabwean farmers' expertise. Many are in South Africa, Botswana and Mozambique too.
Well, I know that some ministers on the farm, but we actually drove through Zimbabwe 5 years ago and drove onto the farm, and there was absolutely nothing happening on the farm.
It wasn't only the white farmers who were affected. Their workers also suffered. Paul remembers living in fear of Mugabe's supporters. On the farm he fled just before it was seized. He's also still hurt by what happened.
A country is not about white, black, colored, Indian. We are same. So like the government of Zimbabwe, what they did to say we are taking farms from white, they were totally wrong.
There are Zimbabweans who disagree. Many say they have benefited from the government's reforms. But they were devastating for those forced off the land they'd invested time, money and so much more in.
We don't belong anywhere. We're like a lost tribe.
They are making a positive contribution in other countries, but it isn't the same because it isn't home. Tania Page, Al Jazeera, Zambia.
Also in Africa, Zimbabwe has announced plans to return some farms to their former white owners. Now, this comes 15 years after the government sanctioned widespread land grabs that plunged Zimbabwe into economic chaos. But many say the announcement is as confusing as it is exciting. CCTV's Farah Mukatayu reports.
It's been a decade and a half since hundreds of thousands of landless blacks moved onto vast white-owned farms. Questions have surrounded Zimbabwe's land reform program since day one, from how the land was acquired, whom it was given to, and how productive they've been. Clearly, there's no letting up on those questions as more of them arise, this time questioning what role white farmers will have going forward. According to state media, farms deemed to be of strategic economic importance will be allowed to remain in the hands of white farmers. Output of major crops, save for tobacco, are below par, leaving what was once Africa's breadbasket a net importer of food. That could be why some former landowners are being re-engaged.
If you're running a capitalist economy, you obviously want to be able to grow your crops at rates which will give you a huge profit on the international market. And you also want to be able to feed your people, because once you have a food problem in your own country, that ties your hands. You can't make much of a policy of anything. This is a way of being pragmatic in a capitalist economy.
But could this amount to betrayal? A new farmer I spoke to doesn't think so. Wirimai Mushonga, who was settled on his 120-hectare farm in 2004, told me that any Zimbabwean, whether white or black, should be allowed to farm provided land is available. For him, there's one overriding objective.
We want to increase our production as Zimbabweans.
The white-dominated Commercial Farmers Union says about 800 of its members have applied for land. None of them have been successful.
On the one hand, you're seeing government doing steps to issue offer letters to 6 farmers, and on the other hand, we're seeing government and people being evicted off their farms, led by government and senior politicians and all that. One of these particular farmers that we are talking about has been notified in March, the beginning of this year already, that they would be getting an offer letter, and to this day still wait to see the offer letter and receive it. So we haven't seen any movement, we haven't seen any development that they are going to receive it yet.
The union remains cautiously optimistic as it and others watch yet another turn in this complex Zimbabwe land issue. Farai Mwakutuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.